to Masters Tour Jönköping, and we are going to round out the final round, I guess, for you guys today. I'm Raven. Joining me is Frodan to finish up the day, and we've got some more matches from round number 9, the final round we have of Swiss, before we get into that top 8 tomorrow. And it's been a crazy day, and we just had that match there with Dead Draw doing a reverse sweep, and I'm excited and honestly hope he gets into Grandmasters Europe, Dan, because his performance over multiple Masters Tours now has been pretty incredible.
It's been stellar, to say the least. We haven't seen this much consistency out of almost anybody else outside of Blycha. So, right. And even then, he hasn't done nearly as well at this tour stop, or rather this Masters Tour, compared to Dead Draw. So, as has been said a few times now, Dead Draw could possibly be the most consistent player that is not guaranteed Grandmaster, but with that 8-1 performance, maybe he does get there. But coming up next, we have Monsanto, a America's Grandmaster, up against HSKeDaiBiao. And it's going to be 2 warriors banned, but we do have the Warlock versus the druid as the class differences in this head-to-head.
Yeah, it's very interesting as well, because I believe Monsanto was tweeting out that he thinks the build of Warlock he's playing is actually very strong, and it's not a build that everyone's going for. He has an unstable Fellbolt in there, only 1 Soulfire, but then he's running that Sky General Crag in there for not only a bit of an extra taunt minion, but because of the quest being used, of course, he gets the Rush Parrot as well. To be able to help out with a kind of double removal tool of 1 removal half and then the taunt half to help versus some more aggro. So maybe that's been helping him get some of these wins, because both these players are at pretty strong scores right now. I believe basically just needing this final win to give them a really good shot at getting into that top 8.
Yeah, and for the top 8, it's going to take a very impressive record to go at least 8-1 to guarantee it. But there's a chance that 7-2... excuse me, still is able to get there. So if you want to follow along with us, you can go to battlefy.com/HSEsports. Or the HS Esports Twitter account has been covering it all throughout the weekend, at least by posting the scores. You can go ahead and check it out there as well.
Yeah, an absolute ton of matches over the past couple of days, and we've got a few more to go before we are done yet. But let's kick it off. Monsanto going to be on the top there with the Demon Hunter, going for his Q with game number 1. And I'm going to go for HSKeDaiBiao as my guess. That name, I confess, I do not know how to pronounce it, so everyone laugh at me. And if you do know, by all means, send me a message and let me know. But for now, he's going to be on the Rogue here. And again, just a very interesting matchup. Demon Hunter normally dominates that early game, Dan, but Rogue has been, at least from what I've been seeing, really getting the work done in the mid game and late game and grabbing a lot of wins versus Demon Hunter.
Yeah, if his username is supposed to be pinging for Chinese, I apologize. But there's not too much information that pops up during the search. To find out more about the last president, it's not fun. It's just opening for Demon Hunter.
Is he just already dead?
He's not dead yet, but it feels like he's on a path to achieving that. This is a lot of damage coming on turn 2.
Yeah, and this is the stealth rogue here from HSKeDaiBiao, so he does have access to a lot of card draw and those spy mistresses, but neither of which are available for him right now. And we see that the Devoted Maniac in his hand, and that's a card almost all players have now cut from Rogue, at least from what I've been seeing, and we will see if that might be a little bit too slow to keep up with this Demon Hunter.
Yeah, and when you're playing cards like Devoted Maniac, you are going to have slower starts, so that's partially the reason why people have been cutting from the list. HSKeDaiBiao, thinking about if he wants to preemptively take damage, that's tough. Just because you don't really want to take excessive damage that you don't need to in a matchup like this, where the Demon Hunter has a very small window, but they really make it count early game.
And just look at the difference from some of the games we've been seeing of Rogue. Any early drops, any of that nice removal, an early Van Cleave, all very powerful. The second that, he doesn't have access to that, he's already on 13 health, and we can see Kane, Glaive, Bound Adept, and Warglaive in hand. Maybe the perfect 3 cards to have here for Monsanto, as it'll not only avoid taunts, it'll push plenty of damage as well.
Yeah. HSKeDaiBiao gets the double Titanic Lacking against Monsanto. There's some poetic justice for that being a thing. However, Monsanto probably not going to blink too much, even if his opponent has a 1 in 13 chance for that Titanic Lacking. He's going to clean up everything with the Warlock, his hand, and blade. Yeah, this is too much damage. HSKeDaiBiao is...
Yeah, it's just too late, isn't it? And again, we just see how important it is. I talked about rogues have been doing well versus the Demon Hunter because they managed to steal that mid and late game and really secure that. But the tools just weren't there. We saw Kronks, we saw Shield of Galakron, we saw Devoted Maniac all in hand and just none of that early game. So again, you see how, although Demon Hunter is powerful, obviously, we just see how truly aggressive it can be in some of those matchups where the answers just aren't there. Similar to the way you see some Druid matchups versus Demon Hunter when they don't have that early game removal.
Yeah, and you look at that matchup and you say, surely Rogue is supposed to survive past turn 5. And a lot of times, Demon Hunter often gets the win, or at least has secured the win around that time. And if the game can go on longer, either the Demon Hunter will have to hope to, get really powerful Skull Gul'dan opportunities or altruists, but Rogue usually starts to turn the tide. And so
right.
Demon Hunter in that position, it's not a surprise to get a win that fast, even though it was blazing speed. Turn 5, killing his opponent by draining to 0. It's not a concede that a lot of players end up tapping out there.
Yeah, and now we see for Monsanto, he does have his Rogue and his Warlock left again. Although I've not happened myself to be able to cast too much Quest Warlock this weekend. It is a deck I very much enjoy casting. Oh, there we go. I didn't even know it was Quest Warlock. Perfect. It's a deck that I'm still not made my mind up on how strong it is, but I definitely enjoy watching it being played. I enjoy casting it because I think there are a lot of tough choices the pilot has to make, and we see those either pay off significantly or maybe lead to the player's downfall pretty often.
Yeah, so the Warlock versus the Demon Hunter with this kind of opening hand from Monsanto looks already very good for him. HSKeDaiBiao doesn't really sound like he's got much outside of the Battle Fiend. And against the specific Quest Warlock decks, we've even seen people entertain the idea of throwing away some of their one drops and only keeping maybe one at most. So HSKeDaiBiao is going to really look for that mid-game power. And he has some of it. The Wargoose of Azeroth and the Skull Gul'dan. That's a good start.
Hey though, speaking of good starts, just having the Dark Skies, having that option of, although Nether Breath not live yet, but having the Moag Nether Breath means he's one Dragon Draw away from a reasonable chunk of heal. But also just the plot twist there is just, it's not so bad for Monsanto right now. Still probably looking for the only one-off quest in Adventurer or the Sense Demons to really help out with this early game and not only draw a lot of cards but guarantee some heal. But still, looks pretty good so far for Monsanto.
Yeah. Maybe as far as say that he confidently likes that, but he does end up choosing to do it. Sitting in a pretty comfortable spot for now, does not want to let things get too out of control, but Dark Skies will pretty much clear everything that HSKeDaiBiao can play this turn outside of some very health-driven boards, like 2 Thieving Sidekicks, right. For example, like put it outside of range.
Most importantly, though, I was going to talk about Monsanto's hand doing well because he didn't have any of the clunkier cards stuck there for now. And although Alexstrasza is there, you can argue, well, that's unplayable for so many turns. It does activate that Nether Breath with Moag in hand, right? So even though it's not great as a playable card, it is doing something in Monsanto's hand. But indeed, not the best draw I've ever seen with 4 mana to spare for HSKeDaiBiao.
A little bit unfortunate timing. I'm sure if the rearranging of the draws that he had Beaming Sidekick and the Blazing Battle Mage and then the Glaive Van Adept, things would have worked out much nicer. But still, that would have just been 8 health, and Monsanto Dark Skies dealing 7, or rather 8, still might have cleared up everything anyways. So Monsanto going to go ahead and probably set up for a plot twist here, although you do have to be mindful of, what kind of risk you're incurring, because you are giving up 2 card combination through the form of Marg Artificer and the Nether Breath. That combination in particular is very hard for Demon Hunter to bounce back from if they don't have any form of minion presence. And, DaiBiao just setting up this Warglaze of Azeroth just to burn down his opponent slowly over time. Also a valid way to do it, because if you count the Glaive-bound Adept next turn, that's 8 bursts from hand. And DaiBiao still has other ways to reload with the Skull of Gul'dan. So as much as the early opening hand for Monsanto looked pretty good, it's kind of ironic because DaiBiao isn't really playing too many minions, and Monsanto has mainly minion removal based plans. And he's going to go ahead and plot twist here. He's going to try to maximize the amount of cards that he draws and try to pick up healing. Any kind of Broodmother pickup would be great. Sense Demons would be awesome. And oh my gosh, such a heavy, expensive hand being picked up here. Finds the Acidic Swamp Ooze though, and that's a really good spot here for Monsanto to be able to drop that ooze, but his troubles are just beginning. And it does seem that DaiBiao is just going to go ahead and re-equip and start working anyways. Like the Sky General Crag being included to the deck list, it is very cute as it helps you stay on par with the tempo from your opponent. And also I'm going to go ahead and play the Abyssal Summoner on 6. Is this enough for the lethal? It looks like it. You just have to Twin Slice twice? Oh, the I-Beam doesn't actually become 1 then.
Yeah, it's tough there, isn't it? It means the Bone Chewer is just going to be in the way and make that a little bit awkward. It's so close as well. But Abyssal is one of the cards that could really fight back in this matchup, right? Because if the 8/8 gets to stick even for a turn or soaks up a ton of removal, it does buy the Warlock time generally, but this is so close.
Yeah, the Twin Slice and the second slice in the hero power gives him 6 remaining damage if he double trades into this Abyssal Summoner. And then the Glaive-bound Adept would only deal 4, so he might actually be better served to play this Bone Chewer Brawler, play the I-Beam, and then go about his business by pushing that damage. It's not optimal, but...
Well, also as well, Monsanto's only running 1 Abyssal Summoner, so it's not like he's going to have to do this again next turn. Yes, there are other taunts, of course, he might have to deal with, but not quite to this level of damage he's taking. So I do like this. This sets up the Glaive-bound for next turn as well with the hero power, or even worst case, just has that skull available, right, to see what else is going to go. So even though it was rough and he was so close to lethal, it still put DaiBiao in a strong position.
Yeah, Monsanto still needs to heal, so whatever he ends up drawing off this Mortal Coil, he's really going to hope that it heals him immediately, whether it's through the Nether Breath or the Aranasti Broodmother. And he does not find it, and I think that's going to be the game. There's just too much damage. Oh, wait! I spoke
the sickest live tap! And that is some heads-up play, because going to 2 is so rough, and you really never want to do that. But the fact that if he did get the Broodmother, it would allow him to actually heal up to 6, which is no longer a Glaive-bound dead.
Oh, stop it. He's got Altruist and Glaive-bound Adept at 1 and 2 mana apiece. He could feasibly just hold all of this and go for a big Altruist swing next turn.
It's not like he's going to die, like, almost every single time, right? I don't really think there's any combo of cards, especially pre-quest, that kills him from this.
Yeah, the only issue is that the left side of his hand is pretty expensive. So if he picks up another expensive card, like Metamorphosis, assuming he can't just straight up kill Monsanto, the Altruist turn gets a lot weaker. But even then, there's still a chance here. Monsanto's still 1 mana off from playing Alcatraz back to 15.
He does have a life tap. This last tap to save him. And I think that's a Fell Bolt, right? Yeah, that's not going to be what he wants.
Doesn't look like it. So with that Cane, that is all but guaranteed. Doesn't even necessarily need an Altruist or all this Glaive-bound Adept. Can pretty much just ignore the taunts. But hey, I mean, the Adept can do it. There's many ways to slice or skin this situation here for HSKeDaiBiao. He's just going to go ahead and just use the cane to get it over with. Game 2 victory for the Demon Hunter, and the Warlock still kind of struggling a little bit. It's not exactly doing as poorly as we kind of thought. Some people are saying that Warlock might have just been incorrect bring.
Right.
But it's about 50% win rate, which is reasonable, right? For a third deck. It's even against Demon Hunters, unfavored versus the Druids, but slightly favored versus the Rogue. And with that, it kind of sets up a dynamic where Warlock seems to be a pretty solid bring for the tournament.
It does, yeah. I think the importance with the Warlock is, I think it's definitely the deck where if you bring it, you have to be very confident with it. You have to have put in the games. It's not a deck that you can really go, oh yeah, someone told me this is good, so I'll submit it and give it a whirl, see what happens. You really need to know the ins and outs and all the small little intricacies of the deck, even with just when to tap, how many cards to go for, when to play that Sense Demons, and when you can really get the most out of those Nether Breaths as well to heal, because as we can see, being able to heal almost on demand is hyper important in some of these aggressive matchups.
Yeah, I definitely would say that. And as we head to game number 3, we have Rogue versus Rogue. And it's, we know that it's not equal because we know that HSKeDaiBiao is playing more of the stealth package, and Monsanto is playing more of the secrets plus the questing adventure. And so we will see who gets the head-to-head edge. Neither player having those early game minions, though.
Yeah, nothing too explosive going to happen so early. I'm just having a quick glance here. The big deal here for me is because, at least in my opinion, Monsanto's bringing what I think is the best rogue list, which is the secrets with the Spy Mistress and Questins. HSKeDaiBiao is obviously playing the Spy Mistress because he's bringing that stealth package, but he isn't playing the Questing Adventurers. He's on the Faceless Corruptor Devoted Maniac plan, which is, for me, a little bit more of an older list, if that makes sense. But overall, I think Monsanto, at least just in build, has a bit of an advantage here. There's a question right now for Monsanto. Not that he wants to play it, because the Spy Mistress is doing the great job of just auto-killing any minion that's played for the foreseeable future. But still, just the fact that it's there means that he can start to plan on how to get the most out of this.
Yeah, ambush here can make sense. He did see that HSKeDaiBiao played the Spy Mistress from the top of the deck, implying that he doesn't have a really good play. He also played this off curve. And it's not, if you were going to go for some, Edwin Van Cleef turn or any other big tempo play, you would most likely want to be mana efficient. And so HSKeDaiBiao ends up seeing the second secret, which means he knows exactly what combination to do.
Right, I think Monsanto might have thought that there would have been a Greyheart Sage in the opening hand for HSKeDaiBiao, and that's why he would have played a Spy Mistress, off curve, just to make sure he can get that card draw guaranteed. And I think that helped towards the decision to go for that, the ambush, because if there was a Greyheart Sage played, well, there's no actual way he can just deal 3 this turn, right? So he couldn't have killed it. There's no Seal Fate and no other ways. So I do like the ambush there, even to just stop HSKeDaiBiao really getting hold of the board super early.
Give me a quest.
Yeah, I agree. And Monsanto just play the questing adventure, knows that it's pretty much just gonna die. Monsanto does not have a copy of Bamboozle in his rogue deck, particularly because of this card. You don't want to actually have questing adventure in Edwin Van Cleef and then Bamboozle to make him weaker.
Yep, that's normally the case, isn't it? The biggest reason I like Bamboozle as a card, and I love some of the crazy outcomes, but even I wouldn't argue for putting it in a list with 2 questing adventures, as well as, of course, Van Cleef. So this is sad, though, isn't it? That Monsanto's basically played a quested adventurer that he knows will die 100% of the time, and at worst dies to a 1-drop as well.
Yeah, what's the best way to answer this board state?
From nothing.
I think he's just going to keep this simple, I guess. Put the Spy Mistress into the ambush. And then he can just face tank this. He could coin out the Goblin Lackey. But I don't think that's that important. what he's doing now is the age-old rogue setup of Shadow Stepping a Lackey on turn 4 with the coin, and then having Lackey coin Togwaggle for the big turn 5 play. And once that happens and your opponent doesn't really keep up, well, say goodbye to a game, I think.
Yeah, and right now Monsanto anticipates that High Spear and Togwaggle potentially coming out as early as next turn.
Many options. I will act as your scape.
We shall see. Shield of Galakrond gets a second invocation for that Galakrond just to buff it up a little bit. It's his best minion.
From nothing.
And I mean, DaiBiao looks like he's just going to have a lot extra resources relative to Monsanto right now. Both players have their Galakronds. Both players generating a lot of cards. These Rogue Mirrors can end up being quite the slobber knockers, Raven. They can be kind of a fight and a war of attrition, just using a bunch of small cards to gain incremental value over your opponent.
And I think that's an important note as well, is that the cost of hand here, because for a second, with DaiBiao's hand so full, I was wondering whether he was going to maybe divert and pick a non-standard choice from Tog. But he went for the Wand, I think, because he has Sinister Strike, Shadow Step, Dragon Horde, he does have the Goblin Lackey, and Eviscerate. He's got a ton of cards that he can effectively dump very quickly, if he wants to, next turn, to allow him to play the Wand and still keep his hand at a reasonable amount. But if his hand was a little bit more expensive, I wouldn't have been overly surprised to see just like I'm going crazy now, a Crown, just to try and get some crazy minions on board early.
I never lie, but I never tell the truth.
Shadow Juhanar. Looks like Monsanto was debating between Questing Adventure and Shadow Juhanar for about a minute or so here, and ends up choosing that the value line might be better than I guess it's a combination of value and tempo, but it's not like super great tempo because you're playing a bunch of one-attack minions. It's okay. I also kind of thought that Monsanto may have contemplated perhaps picking up a value trade and using Witchy Lackey. And I think this is Monsanto saying that he wants to just use Galakrond to get ahead. Although DaiBiao, of course, popping that Dirty Secrets just to get that combo activator to get started here.
Yeah, and again, I do actually like this from Monsanto. Even though it doesn't look like a threatening board, he is wider, right? So he just has more stuff than his opponent. But speaking of stuff, the second you draw a Cleave off a wand, you're feeling pretty good about life as you're able to just drop that down, especially after seeing the Blackjack Stunner get played and the secret deactivated. Although there is a secret in hand, the likelihood of the second Stunner being there is relatively low, which means this Van Cleef is quite the threat right now for Monsanto to deal with.
Yeah, and by killing the Blackjack Stunner, you know, there's no opportunity for Monsanto to Shadow Step and deal with that Van Cleef. Van Cleef is pretty big at 12-12. Monsanto is going to need a lot to take that down.
And there isn't a lot, is there? I'm wondering whether it's worth... the stealth minion is a nightmare here for Monsanto. Because you could consider actually trying to get a freezing trap, for example, or a vaporize, if he could clear the rest of the minions off. And then just isolate the Van Cleef on board. And suddenly there's a couple of secrets that actually get the job done. Or at least make it difficult for DaiBiao. But with this Skyvateer on board, he doesn't really have a way to deal with it, right? So it means this, if it's Vaporize or Freezing Trap, can always proc it first.
Yep, looks like Monsanto is going fishing, and that's an act of desperation. The Witchy Lackey, he doesn't have enough mana to do Witchy Lackey and Goblin Lackey.
I was looking at the Rush Lackey as well, just for the quest adventure, right? It's a reasonable size to actually get a good trade on board with.
And if you use a Shadow Step, it should be able to give him enough just to clear off everything.
Most importantly, just kill off this Van Cleef. Threat number 1 dealt with.
Yeah, but it's kind of like we're talking about. The resource count is so high for DaiBiao, and you still have that second High Spear and Togwaggle Battle Cry you can activate. Not necessarily this turn, but he's in such a good position resource-wise that all he has to do is make sure not to fall too far behind in tempo. If he just goes even in resources, he's going to win out.
Again, though, the rush like is huge. Being able to just trade off this board that little bit easier and just keep that many more minions alive here. As you said, as long as HSKeDaiBiao just keeps hold the board, Rogue doesn't really have a good way to fight back that's even remotely efficient. We just saw what Monsanto had to commit to kill that Van Cleef, right? It was an insane amount of resources, but valid. Whereas HSKeDaiBiao now can just keep just chucking bits onto the board and just stay ahead, trade off some minions and keep on going. He can even not as efficiently use all the resources in his hand because he has Galakrond and a second Togwaggle there as well, because it was bounced earlier in the game.
Yeah, that's a good point. And now passes back over to Monsanto, and this board is going to grow more intimidating with each passing turn. So Monsanto's going to go ahead, play his Galakrond, and see what he can pull out from this position. All right. Blackjack Center for a little bit more tempo.
It's not bad, is it? But because it wasn't full Galakrond, you know, 2 is not quite as good as 4, of course, with the card draw. So, although a decent draw there, nothing fantastic, because we could just see HSKeDaiBiao could just throw more stuff on the board. He is going to overdraw this turn, but I think right now, who cares?
Right. I think Monsanto was like, oh, hopefully I can like burn your Galakrond and you can't do anything. But it was optimistic from the start.
Yeah, I guess like Galakrond or Kronks would be the 2 super high value targets to burn. But like you said, not really a realistic plan. Sometimes it happens, most of the time.
Yeah. HSKeDaiBiao testing for the Paladin Secret, sees no redemption, sees no noble sacrifice. We know that, of course, it's Repentance, so the moment he plays a minion on the board, it goes reduced down to 1 HP.
I'm just trying to work out what minion Monsanto has to draw to be able to triple evolve it into a win condition. Because he has just those 3 witchy, like he's just sat there waiting for a reasonable target. Yeah, bit of a mistake there as the emote came out from HSKeDaiBiao. I think he had a fairly good read that it was Repentance, but then again, I guess if he always planned to evolve it, it might have just been a bit of a mess around, emoting that it was a mistake, even with the follow-up from the Lackey. So maybe he's just trying to wind Monsanto up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely one of the struggles of Rogue, which is that a lot of times you can have stuff in your hand to play, but they're all like minor buffs or different things that you can do. So the one ray of hope here for Monsanto is that he will get time to have a comeback potentially. His issue is that he doesn't have a Lackey on board to immediately play High Spirit Togwaggle and the Treasure. In fact, he can't even guarantee kill this Wind Fury Harpy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and the problem is as well, without Shadow Step, wanding into Kronks isn't, although he's still decent, isn't that good, right? A lot of the power plays for Rogue in these more late game scenarios are Kronks, Shadow Step, Kronks for big either AoE effects, damage pushes, or minion summons. But with the Shadow Steps gone from Monsanto, that's not possible. But Stormwind Knight, it's not the worst evolve I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's pretty reasonable with this board. I wonder if Monsanto wants to Witchy Lackey something else that isn't his Stormwind champion. I think he's just gonna go for gold. Hopefully get like Tyrion or some other high impact 8 cost. But yeah, Monsanto is struggling, and looks like HSKeDaiBiao is gonna climb even further ahead.
Yeah, the big issue there was Stormwind Knight would have been good if you just had more minions to actually attack with. But because he pretty much just didn't, the buff didn't really serve its purpose, and only 6 health, it's quite easy to clean up here for HSKeDaiBiao. So I do like the extra evolve there, just to see what happened.
Right.
Is this really a Wind Fury Harpy trading with a 1-1? Is that the world we're living in right now, Dan? Because to me, if a card's got Wind Fury and more than 1 attack, it should go face.
I mean, he could. There's no threat of a dagger from your opponent, so your 1 health minion can be pretty efficient. Looks like HSKeDaiBiao wants to go for an evolve. I mean, He's just trying his best to keep putting the pressure on while developing. Oh my gosh.
As if HSKeDaiBiao didn't have enough cards. He can get
Yeah. Well, he can activate Antonidas this turn with a Dragon's Horde. That's cool.
Just needs to make
I
sure
like
he doesn't
that.
overdraw as well and like waste cards. Because obviously it's quite easy now because the one, this Skyvateer could die and draw him. Also, Dragon's Horde would then generate 2 cards, the Fireball and the Choice.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that he's not choosing to play Dragon's Horde. I think he wants to keep his hand free for the Galakron next turn since he has the 5/2 Claw ready to go. It does feel like a missed opportunity, especially when your opponent picks up Kronks like that.
Honestly, I don't think he needs the Fireball, and I think that's where HSKeDaiBiao is right now. We've seen him with those trades with the Wind Fury Harpy. I think now, and this is what I was going to raise as well, what's Monsanto, outside of the Krunks we saw him draw, what's he wanding into? Has he got anything even left to win this game? Well, HSKeDaiBiao's at 19, but outside of exactly Krunks, I don't know what else is even left.
Well, I mean, it's still a significant tempo swing. If he plays Kronks, 5 damage to everything, and then Flick, he can actually push damage and start to grab tempo on his side.
He could even hold the Flick because he can just use this 4 damage from his Dragons.
It's true.
Just clear it off, of course, but still.
I was just thinking about maximum pressure to try to go for damage because he would be able to push 4, but this also works.
Yeah, to try and actually end the game quickly, because as we can see, the longer the game goes, I think the worse it's getting for Monsanto right now.
And it's kind of like what we're talking about, where HSKeDaiBiao still has the problem with hand space, so it's not like playing Skyvateer was much better there. But, I mean, he's still pretty firmly ahead of the resource count. Monsanto basically around that same stage of fatigue. Here we go. Galakron, it's time for HSKeDaiBiao to strike back here.
And it's fully invoked, so not only is he going to draw 4, twice as many as Monsanto got from his Galakron, but also he's going to have that claw weapon to really just help secure this board once again, which is why that little the backstab with the Galakron obviously looks very nice because it kills off this Kronks and again just reduces some shenanigans that Monsanto could end up with if this Kronks were to stick around.
Monsanto able to respond to the Great Heart Sage just with his own. Ooh.
Oh, well, that's probably active.
It's very likely to be. Not. I have to check right now to see if that actually ends up being the case. But the good thing is that there's a ray of hope here for Monsanto. He's constantly presenting boards, and HSKeDaiBiao is reacting to them. HSKeDaiBiao felt so confident in his resource advantage that he's been taking it very slow. And I wonder if this is an opportunity to punish.
Don't take the Alex.
I mean,
oh my god.
Yeah, why not? You can actually play it right now.
Okay, as long as he's got space.
By all means.
Okay.
Malygos. I mean, yeah, it's free Malygos.
I think it's just less about spell damage even from Malygos, but more just about a minion that will actually stay on the board to start trading away. And if he wants to continue to play this board control style, he needs minions to stick, right? And a 12 health normally does the trick.
And such a weird twist of fate is that Monsanto, if he uses his Flick Sky Shiv on his opponent's Dragon Queen, that's even better. He can now do that and the Flick Sky Shiv.
And he can still play his Squall as well.
At the end. What on earth? Is he going to actually be able to pull this out? There's no way.
There's always a way when you generate Alex. I think it just looks good, right? And I think at this point for HSKeDaiBiao, he should just play everything. He should just be as aggressive on board as possible. Clear as much of this. As you said, he can use the Flick to kill off the Malygos. And just say... Oh,
Yeah.
Is Monsanto just gonna... This shouldn't have been allowed. But again, HSKeDaiBiao went for the extreme board control plan, which is why Monsanto's still at 33 health. Right?
Right.
And I guess that's something you could wind back and say maybe if HSKeDaiBiao played a little bit more aggressively when he had the stronger board and more resources, then he would have put Monsanto in a bit more threatening positions with his health and meant that Monsanto couldn't be as free with his resources, maybe.
Yeah, now he has to deal with a Winged Guardian, which is blocking all of his ability to interact with it. He can't eviscerate it, for example. If he plays Flick Skyshiv on the Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, he only has 4 mana remaining. He's very far behind. And I wasn't sure about the High Spirit Togwaggle being bounced back to the hand to be 7 mana, but it does seem a little bit hard for HSKeDaiBiao to get that out.
Right.
So Monsanto's tempo plays have been keeping him on a steady line. Murazond? He doesn't get the battle cries.
And that means
not
he'd
get the
just
battle
be
cries.
dead, right?
If he Mind Flayer the Winged Guardian, and then Flick... No, that doesn't work. Too expensive. Is he seriously just dead? No, he's
I think so. He'd need a rush lackey for the cars, right?
Right, he needs to play the
11.
Flick. Yeah, so he's
12.
not dead,
Yeah.
but this is a scary situation. So Monsanto can...
This gets fairly straightforward for him, right?
I'm trying to think about what he can pick up here. Ethereal Lackey's always nice. Okay, Blade Flurry obviously not great here, so Betrayal and Pilfer.
Probably Betrayal. I like Pilfer, but I think this turn he might want to play Draconic Lackey, and if he gets an expensive dragon to open it up for next turn. But also, Betrayal could help him get through a taunt minion next turn for lethal. It could help him just remove a couple of pesky minions, but it looks like he's going to go for Pilfer instead. I feel that Betrayal is much more flexible next turn than a random card is.
Okay, that's fair. I guess Pilfer just could be the outside chance he just gets lethal.
Sure, yeah. I would like the full face, though, here from Monsanto. I think that this is his advantage, is the fact that he is basically setting up lethal versus HSKeDaiBiao, and Monsanto's got all the health in the world right now, so I think it's important he does go aggressive and just force HSKeDaiBiao to remove this board every single turn now for the rest of the game.
Alright, so we can get a 1-mana Lackey through Praise Galakron, or I guess Draconic Lackey, that works too. Yeah, because he might get a dragon that can impact the state of the board. Not really that much, though.
Right.
Faceless Corruptor helps get through the Winged Guardian. And then he can play Evasive Draconid. No, he can't. That's too expensive. He has 4 mana remaining. He actually doesn't have a lot going on after that.
No, I don't know what he can do, because even if he faceless to clear off the 6/8, then he can't kill off the squad without tanking it with his face, which means he just dies.
2 Titanic Lackeys, but there's
Just won't matter.
he still needs to get through this taunt.
They can do that, but afterwards I think there's just too much damage, and most importantly, Monsanto picked up the Evasive Worm off the Draconic Lackey last turn, which means he has a 6-mana deal 5 to any of the minions here to help him push through any awkward taunts anyway.
I can't believe
it's
it.
just
I do not know how could HSKeDaiBiao end up losing from this position, but he does. Monsanto wins game 3 in a pretty back and forth rogue mirror, and I think HSKeDaiBiao, he definitely did not even let Monsanto see, like, he knew he was dead. And that was a really, really tough spot to be in for Monsanto, and yet he managed to pull through. It did take some shenanigans, right? Dragon Queen Alexstrasza and those swing turns. But it does feel like because he played so slow, he gave an opportunity for Monsanto to have those outs.
Yeah, that's the issue, right? I mean, I said myself earlier on in that game, I said, how does Monsanto win? Because what stuff does he even have left? Well, like an absolute fool that I am, I did not really mention the fact that, guess what? Rogue can discover cards. And whether they be lackeys, big spells that could make an impact, or most importantly, like we saw, draconic lackeys that can get some of those high impact dragons. And to be fair, both players got hold of an Alexstrasza, so it's kind of even if you look at it that way. But yeah, that was the big deal. If you play for never-ending trades to just take on the board when your opponent can infinitely generate value, well, that's not always then a guaranteed plan, is it? If it was against a different deck or a different class, maybe that works. But again, when you see, and I joked about it at the time, but maybe I should be more serious, is when that Wind Fury Harpy was looking like it was making like tiny trades on board versus pushing any damage face, I was a little bit worried, because if you're not, even though you're controlling board, if you're not threatening actual damage to your opponent, it just gives them more time. But we are going to go into our game number 4, of course. And HSKeDaiBiao now going to be on his druid, and Monsanto going back to the Warlock once again.
Yeah, Warlock versus the Druid. This is a matchup that should be good for the Druid on paper, but, you know, it still hasn't been working out all day for Druid. Some high highs, some low lows. And when we've seen Druid on stream, it has sometimes the most magnificent hands.
Right.
And also hands that don't really do much. These kinds of hands, though, with Overflow ramp or Overgrowth into Overflow ramp, ends up being pretty good. Also, HSKeDaiBiao has the option of going for a Glowfly Swarm this turn instead. But, you know, with the curve going into Overflow, I don't blame him for prioritizing this ramp right now here.
Yeah, I do feel like a lot of Druid losses are down to the Druid themselves, just being able to whiff in multiple different ways. But you, as you quite rightly said, the ramp into Overflow makes your game much more consistent, just because you draw a ton of cards, which means you are going to get to those threats, you are going to get to those spells to help out with a Mount Seller and sell those lethals. But that was a fairly good plot twist there from Monsanto, getting hold of double Nether Breath, but I think most importantly just this Questing Explorer to just keep the draw coming. He's on 15 out of 20 already.
Very much so. And HSKeDaiBiao is going to go ahead and heal Monsanto. Restore 5 health to all characters. The only damaged character is the Warlock hero.
Oh, jeez.
So would have to dump again, or just hold these 10 cards. You could convince me that passing here and holding 10 cards is fine. For the most part, he's going to be pretty okay with any burn as long as it's not Savage Roar.
Yeah, so my question here, right, is the card you dump is Innovate. But the problem is Innovate, or is there a better card in his deck that is better than being able to innovate a 2-cost spell next turn as well, which he has access to in the form of Power of the Wild, Rising Wind, or Wrath? So I think that because outside of what you could argue exactly Ysera, there aren't any cards that actually impact his next turn as much as that Innovate does. So I do actually like this from HSKeDaiBiao here.
Yeah, when you see your opponent overflow and hold cards instead of dumping it, it makes you feel like you know it's coming next turn, which is a big exotic Mount Seller. He does have responses in the form of the Moarg Artificer and the Rain of Fire, so he can help answer some of the board that way. But he also only has access to Crazed Netherwing for a widespread AoE beyond that, and that's a little funky. So how does Monsanto choose to approach this? Soulfire to the face?
This is just so he can live tap.
Wow, so he can go ahead and tap, free up his hand space a bit. I was not expecting that.
This is a play that looks very silly the first time you see something like this happen, but this is kind of what I was talking about earlier on, where Monsanto feels very comfortable with this deck, and sometimes you do need to make these weird plays where Monsanto getting to his quest completion is more important than him playing a Swamp Ooze, right? Like, he needs to tap and get to that quest completion to have a chance, because one of the issues with this Mount Seller board, and is often the case and why the matchup seems pretty good for Druid, is that they do all their board creation way quicker than you can get to, say, Twisting Nether. or reliably get to KeDaiBiao or whatever, AoE. They do it just that little bit too early.
What?
Okay. Okay, the emote as well. This Monsanto means business right now, but that was the draw. As you can see, 6 mana. No other 6 mana play deals with that board, right? He might be able to kill the Mount Seller, but that's it. He might be able to kill some of the smaller minions. Can't do both unless he drew exactly KeDaiBiao.
Yeah, that was a massive pickup here for Monsanto. Now he doesn't have to use Morg Artificer and all these removals. He is set.
It's huge.
So,
I mean,
how do you even go about this as the druid player? If you go for the Glowfly Swarm, you get punished by like any kind of AoE. You go for a Mount so that you don't have enough actual meat behind it, but you need to dump cards before you actually play this other exotic Mount Seller. Things are looking very good for Monsanto. This Crazed Netherwing looks pretty appetizing, but he also has the Moarg plus Rain of Fire and Life Tap. And he's so healthy that he doesn't even necessarily need to care about Moarg and Nether Breath.
Right.
So he can go ahead and play those two and just get the quest done.
Yeah, and I think the difference here, or the main thing you need to look for, he can Netherwing tap, but that could leave him in some hand issues. But also, if he Moarg into the Rain of Fire to clear this, what that means is he can hold the Netherwing to be able to clear off maybe a second wave of Mount Seller, because those minions often do have around 3 health or less, whereas this is just a guaranteed clear with just a Rain of Fire and a Moarg, which you can't do versus a Mount Seller board a lot of the time. Either way, I think that turn was just insane for Monsanto, and these are the games, although unfavored, these are the games that Warlock takes wins with against Druid.
Yeah.
Is he deciding against it?
Okay. I'd be okay with also just a Crazed Netherwing and pass. I think that's also totally valid. Either way, we gotta do something. We can't just leave up all those 2/2s.
And you saw then, when he was floating the Unstable Fell Bolt, it's because Monsanto wants to tap every single turn of the game. Sometimes you can't, as we just saw, but that's his thought pattern of the quicker he gets his quest live, the quicker he can actually end this game and not just try to survive.
Yeah, and I wonder if this is one opening here for HSKeDaiBiao to potentially have an opportunity to get a late game option with the Zixor, but it might be too far gone. As Monsanto has some of his best removal in his hand still with Twisting Nether.
I do think any additional threats are important, because there is still Ysera in his deck, right? For HSKeDaiBiao, so he's by no means done. The only slight worry he has is in this matchup, you don't really want to play Ysera before you see Twisting Nether and near the end of your deck, because that means it is just going to dump out like 6 dragons, right, on the same turn, and then 1 Twisting Nether later, you're in trouble. But the Zixor, less because it opened up a potential trade there, but more because of that Prime, does give him at least just 1 extra wave of threats, which when your deck only runs about 5 anyway, having 1 extra is a significant increase.
Very true. Monsanto probably wants to just clear this Mount Seller. You can do it with the Moarg and the Nether Breath. You could also just straight up doing the Twisting Nether. And actually, I take that back. You can't Moarg Nether Breath and Crazed Netherwing. So this seems like a very clean way to go about it.
I'm ready for the big play from Monsanto, a play I love in this matchup. I hope he just goes for the Malygos pass play, especially after seeing this turn, which is going to not give him much development. I suppose the Zixor Prime exactly might dissuade him from playing Malygos, but without Zixor Prime in this spot, I think Malygos is very, very strong indeed, because there's no way Druid can kill it most of the time.
Yeah, exactly. That being said, by not playing, like, he could end up just playing a card and trying to hero power, so that way he can just get like free Alexstrasza's and free other impactful minions. Also, Monsanto could end up just getting major tempo through playing like, the Abyssal Summoner or the Arnasi Broodmother, things like that.
Yeah, I definitely think it's one of the few matchups where I wouldn't advocate for playing a Zephyrus out at this point in the game. I think having Zephyrus out for an additional clear in this matchup is very important because there are just a relatively finite amount of threats. Now the big question for Monsanto, does he just want an 8-8? If I was him, I would say yes, and I would have already played this Alexstrasza. But I've seen this before where the player just waits one additional turn and suddenly it's active, which is obviously a big deal. And unfortunately, because this is not a true live match, we can't check how far away he is from being active right now.
Yeah, I like playing it for the reasons you said. It seems like he's missing a couple of cards. In fact, Monsanto is playing mainly a singleton deck with only a few duplicates. He only has 6 cards in his deck, that's 2 ofs, and 2 of them haven't appeared, unless I'm mistaken. He doesn't have Dark Skies or his Arn, or actually does have an Arnos Broodmother, so it would be just purely Dark Skies there. Because he's holding a Rain of Fire, he has both Moargs, he has both Nether Breath, and he's played a Plot Twist. And of course the Netherwing. So that makes Dark Skies the only duplicate. But that being said, it's like you were saying, Raven, it's still an 8-8. Granted, he just made it a lot easier for Drew to deal with it because of Bog Beam.
Yep.
However, it also goes both ways. Now that HSKeDaiBiao has used cards like his Bog Beam and Crystal Power even, how does he actually remove other threats that are going to come outside of Zixer Prime?
I think he's hoping that it won't matter because he'll have a board full of dragons. And here, this is tough though. Like I said, just dropping a Malygos against Druid is normally very, very powerful because he's nowhere near dying. The problem is though, he knows there's a chance that Zixor Prime is available, and that just deals with Malygos easily. It does soak up the Zixor Prime, so I guess again, in another world, you can say, well, if he uses his whole Zixor Prime to kill my Malygos, then I'm still ahead. But because of Ysera, he doesn't know how many waves of dragons he's going to have to deal with.
Yeah, and also Monsanto might just win purely off of removing all of the Druid threats. So here is one of those dragons, and that's very meaty.
That was actually pretty lucky for HSKeDaiBiao, something I didn't even click until now. Because of the portals, the Malygos become safer, right? Because if HSKeDaiBiao, with only 9 cards and tons of portals in the deck, if he summoned like 3 or 4 portals, 3 or 4 dragons, then Zixor can't be played.
Yeah, and Monsanto doesn't have his big AoE guarantees unless Zephyrus becomes active. I guess he does have the Moarg Artificer, so he can go for Rain of Fire, Moarg, and Nether Breath. And he could even squeeze into Craze Netherwing as well. Coin is not it. Monsanto can Hero Power, though, and get a free card. Abyssal Summoner. So I believe if you Moarg plus Rain of Fire, or I guess you would Netherring first.
Yes, yeah.
So I guess he doesn't need to Rain of Fire at that point.
No, I think he'll go for that, and then just go for the Moarg Nether Breath on the Onyxia.
Sure, I like that.
And this is enough, right? Yeah. And also, yeah, and he gets the taunt down. This is actually very nice here for Monsanto.
And this is also a lot of tempo. So, like, one thing that's worrisome for Druid is, now this is a lot of board presence. You're worried so much about generating a board. Now you have a board, but it's weaker than your opponent's. No Dragon Portal. That's really unfortunate here for HSKeDaiBiao, considering that 6 more portals out of the 8 cards remaining are dragons.
It's so... This game is so close, though, right? Because Monsanto had his Malygos killed, which was unfortunate. But the problem now is you could go, okay, well, HSKeDaiBiao could just play Funnel of Fortunes and fill his board with big dragons most of the time. Right. But then what if Zephyrus is active? He just twisting nethers them away? And then is there enough threats to actually end the game? So both players are now just on the edge here on who's actually just going to get ahead. And although the health looks pretty safe here, and there are ways to kill off this 8-8 as well as push some extra damage and kill off some of the other minions, it's still so close. The dragons can help DaiBiao, but also hinder him as well.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if he wants to go for a Glowfire Swarm Sword of the Forest. It would be a full board. He does have 2 Savage Roars, and I mean, it is kind of time to start pressuring. You're at the very bottom of your deck effectively because you know that you're going to draw one of your 2 cards remaining.
Got to remember as well, DaiBiao's probably feeling fairly safe. He's seen the one of Soulfire used super early in the game, right? That was this game, I think. Or was it not?
I think so.
I'm lost now. But he's seen a Nether Breath as well. So he's seen certain levels. He knows the Malygos is gone. So there's, again, just a reduction in the amount of like crazy burst damage that's available.
Yeah.
I wonder whether he ever like Nether Breaths and then plot twist to try and get the Zephyrus active somehow. It's very tough because we can't see exactly what's left of Monsanto.
Yeah, I think he had a draw for lethal if he picked up Dark Skies, because there's 9 on the board. If he got Bloodlust, that would have been 21, and the Nether Breath is lethal. So he is kind of close, but the Blood Mage Thalanos plus the Rain of Fire should clear off a big chunk of this. I guess he already has Morgard if it's
yeah, it's Moak,
yeah. No need to add extra damage.
Or maybe there was, because the Blood Mage would then draw an additional card. Maybe that was worthwhile.
I like it. A plot twist. All right.
Can get heal. If he draws the Aranati Broodmothers back, he could have... Okay, Zephyrus doesn't appear to be active. He does have Sense Demons, though.
Sense
Not
Demons,
that now
which,
there's anything left to pull.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to do much here. You can just simply play tempo options here. And Aranati Broodmother is fully valid. Understands that there's 2 Savage Lords, so I think he would want to trade this off. And now it comes down to DaiBiao's March of the Dragons, except 6 out of 8 of these cards are Dream Portals. He's going to have to hope that he actually gets 2 or 3 and then draws one of his cards. Okay, stop drawing. Stop drawing at portals.
Stop!
Okay, that's enough. No more. Okay, and that's exactly what needed to happen here for DaiBiao.
He even got the worm, which allowed him to trade off this board very cleanly, actually, which is huge.
Yeah, but he's down to just like this last offensive. If Monsanto can fade this last couple waves of threats, DaiBiao is out of things to do.
It's huge though, right? Because it means just if half of this board lives, double Savage Roar often gets there. It's a ton of damage. Monsanto will know. Both players are close to playing with all their deck, but the Zephyrus is live now. There's the Dark Skies.
Yeah,
he
finally.
can clear this board 100% of the time.
He can Hero Power first. Well, I guess no, you lose the ability to play Twisting Nether immediately. But then you know that 3 other portals are coming out. So is it better to simply greet this somehow? I don't know. There's 2 Savage Roars in hand. You know that your opponent's going to have guaranteed Savage Roars in hand at next turn.
Right. And remember, though, as well, he does have another Dark Skies in the deck. So maybe he can clear board this turn and then try and tap and say double Dark Skies next turn. Maybe.
Yeah, I think he's got to clear it, though. The threat of Savage Roar. At least there's only 3 dragons versus this is guaranteed 5 minions on the board. Yes. Okay, only one dragon. And the last portal is in his deck. So it's just 2 minions.
I'm out of cards.
Needs this to be big. And it's reasonable. It's not amazing.
Well played.
Yeah. Another problem. Yeah, another problem is like how do you deal with an 8/8? So if he just plays the Alexstrasza, DaiBiao doesn't have enough damage. Each Savage Roar is 12, and he has 6 on the board. Or yeah, sorry, it's 6 damage. So he has 12 plus a 6 on the board. That's not enough. So he. I think so. Yeah. That's otherwise he's dead. But it's exactly what you said. Now Monsanto can just play pure removal. He's going to hero power, probably. Because if he trades... Oh yeah, you're right. Like he can just wait for fatigue. He can just wait for fatigue at that point. Fatigue hits for 3. I think this is lethal. Yeah, it is lethal for sure.
I agree.
Yeah, well done. Yeah, so overall, that was a series where it looked like Monsanto was on the ropes constantly, but he's really properly identified certain power spikes that the deck is capable of, but also what they can't do. And he recognized that unless his opponent has 6 or Prime, he can't answer Malagos. Okay, you did. This is my alternative win condition. And yeah, sometimes against Druid, you can totally play the wipe everything because they're not known for damage from the hand. This is in contrast to a class like Demon Hunter, which can very much win from the hand and oftentimes has to. So, against classes like Druid, certainly take your time. Don't overreact. Yes, their boards are hard to deal with, but if you budget your resources correctly, you should be able to handle it.
Yeah, that's the big deal, isn't it? Just knowing the correct amount and what you can get away with, and I think we saw that pretty well there from Monsanto. Apologies, but HSKeDaiBiao again. I think he played pretty well. He just got he just ended up just losing a little bit there with the way the dragons came out here. And I do believe we've got some more Hearthstone to bring to you as well before we are done with the day. So we'll just have to check who exactly we've got coming up before we get into it. But again, just huge congratulations there to Monsanto. And it looks like we are going to go for Piano Killer versus Awama going up. I'm not sure which game we are going to go, but we'll get that up right now. And it looks like, again, we do see another player who chose to leave Warrior up, Frodan, and also chose to lose to a Warrior game. So we'll see what's happening there.
Yeah.
Let's have a look what's going on so far, though, because we are, with the round over now, there is going to be a ton of results that have come in, and we are going to have a strong view towards the end of the day as to who's going to be in tomorrow.
Yeah, we pretty much have our top 8 set. I believe it's pretty much those who are 8-1 or better. So essentially, the winner of this series goes to top 8. The loser bubbles out at 9th through 16th, which is painful, right? When you do this well,
right.
7-2. Just to think about it, right, is a 77% win rate in some of the hardest competition in the world for Hearthstone, right? Like you can even argue that Masters Tour is the hardest tournament right now currently ongoing in Hearthstone, competitive Hearthstone, given the amount of players, the stakes, and the quality of the field as a whole. So, 7-2 is still not good enough. You got to go 8-1 in order to advance to Championship Sunday. And we already saw some players who have already booked their ticket. Rami, Pignus, Dead Draw with an 8-1 score. Monsanto with an 8-1 score. Who's going to join them between these two players?
Yeah, well, we are going to find out, but we are just going to go to a very quick break before we get into it. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with some more Hearthstone.